So Garrett was born full term, and it's my third child, so I wasn't expecting anything, problems. He nursed okay. He'd wake up congested and sputtering, and so I'd nurse him and he'd go back to sleep. It wasn't a big problem. He never drank out of a sippy cup, and wasn't pulling himself up, wasn't trying to sit up, so I knew something wasn't right. So about 14 months, finally, I took him to pediatrician, nothing, ER, nothing. And so finally we got down to Houston, and they took us in there in the ER. He ended up being there, admitted. About 3 weeks in, they decided to put a feeding tube in, just because we didn't know really what was going on. And they did a muscle biopsy. And in January, we found out that he had CFTD, congenital fiber type dysproportion. Well, after my first son was born, I had a miscarriage, and they did some testing and found out that I had a blood disorder and kind of the other things that my mom died of. And so they said it would probably be unlikely if I got pregnant again, and it would be very risky, possibly kill me. But 8 months later, I got pregnant. And so we did some testing every other day kind of thing, and everything was going okay. In 5 months, I developed kidney stones. And so they did some testing and noticed some distillations in Jackson's heart rate. I was going for quite a while. So some more testing every other day kind of thing. And they diagnosed him with SVT, supraventricular tachycardia. So Ben started second grade, and he started wearing glasses, hadn't worn them before. He started vomiting. I called the doctor. He wanted to do an MRI. Well, his brother was vomiting, and then he didn't wear the glasses, and then he wasn't vomiting. Well, I'm glad I'm not the doctor. He still wanted to do the MRI, so we did. It was 2 days before his 8th birthday, and Harry Potter was just come out. So, we were gonna go and have a kickback day, do this test. He's gonna come out of anesthesia. The other kids were in daycare. So, it's gonna be a kind of a good day for us, I guess, until my pediatrician came in during the testing. And I knew that was not good, because I don't know if they called him in or he was there, but he said, we found a tumor in his head. Well, I took her home, and hospital was a bad experience in hindsight. But I had a week home with what I thought was a healthy baby. So I took her back after a week, and she was very jaundiced. She'd lost 2 pounds, and they actually found a heart murmur. The doctor specialist there did an echo, and they found a heart coarctation, and said that she would need surgery. And I said, okay, well, if we're gonna do this surgery, then when should we? And he said, an ambulance is on its way for her. Well, I took my daughter to this pediatrician who was very thorough. He was old school. And they usually don't check the eyes until they go, turn 5, go into school. Well, he wanted to check her eyes. She was only 2.5, and I said, all right, let's do that. So she goes in to put the patch on the eye. She reads all the letters, put the patch on the other eye, and all of a sudden, oh my God, I can't see, like a piercing scream, I was frantic. The nurse, I looked at her, she had a terror on her face. I mean, there was terror in the room because she just could not see. David was born, and he couldn't really move the right side of his body, or wasn't moving it. So I just thought he was left-handed. It's my first kid. I didn't really know anything. And the doctor said, no, something's wrong with that. So, we went for an x-ray in case that was normal. MRI was also normal. So we went to PT, and she found lots of things wrong, and then sent him to OT. They found things wrong. And then he tried starting to crawl and sent him back to PT. And that's when she said he had hypotonia. So sometimes they find it in the ultrasound. They did it in our case, and David was really mad about that. But, you know, I mean, what were we going to do? Some people decide to terminate. And so then we would have been like, I don't know, do you want to do it? Do you want to do it? Like, I don't know. I'm just glad that maybe we didn't know before. And so we didn't know until she was 12 hours old. So, because there's this ductus, and it circulates the blood in the uterus. And then when you're born, it closes, and that's when she went into distress. And, you know, we were at Genesis, and they don't have a neonatal department, so they said, you got to go to Hurley. And so that's where we went. And the doctor took a look at her and said, oh, it's her heart. So they did an ultrasound, and they, you know, saw the right side, but she didn't even have a left side. In October 2003, Jessica had started getting these headaches, and she had been having migraines for about 5 years, so it wasn't really out of order. But in November 1st, she started throwing up every morning, and so on the 8th, we got her to the doctor, and he said it was asthma. She also had a cough, but we weren't really sold on that idea, although we went with it. And so she started oral steroids, which decreases brain swelling. And I think in my gut, I kind of knew something bad was about to happen. So my husband decided, you know, to get this MRI. We set that up. Well, she didn't even make it to the MRI, and she just was vomiting nonstop. So we took her to the urgent care. We took her to the ER, and 2 times in his life, my husband, I'm a doctor, pulled that card out of his pocket, but, you know, said, I want the pediatric neurologist down here. We need an MRI. And they did it immediately. And he saw the tumor come up he made the mistake of being in there and seeing it. So I went into labor about 4:30 in the morning, and got to the hospital around 6:30 or 7. And well, my fluid was gone. I didn't have a cervix, but I wasn't dilating. And instead of just letting me kind of try to go naturally, they started the Pitocin, and it went pretty fast. I was like in a constant contraction. I think they did it too fast. I went from 2 to complete in 30 minutes. And so instead of just like backing it off, they had to turn it off completely. And when Cole was born, he wasn't blue, but he was kind of gray, and his breathing was really shallow. So we knew something was wrong. And nobody would say anything. They just rushed him off. Well, when Josh was 6 months old, yeah, he had his first thing of bronchitis. And then he just kept getting sick, and then they just kept saying bronchitis. They give him medicine and bronchitis, and then stronger medicine, and it would just last longer, take him longer to get better. And I mean, I didn't take him to a specialist. I didn't know about referrals until we got down here, and he got pneumonia. And so we were at the ER, and he said, oh, there's some spots on his lungs, some scars. So he sent us to a specialist, to a respiratory therapist, and he said that he had allergy-induced asthma. So I had in vitro, and I had 2 babies, and one of them was Charlie. And within the first 24 hours, we knew that Charlie was just a real spitty kid, and he was quite jaundiced. So they put him in the Billy Lights. And so, you know, they're really neurotic with the feeding, and so I was having kind of a hard time. I mean, I just remember he was just spitting in these burp cloths that were just soaking wet, and it was just kind of a blur to me too. But after a month, we took him back, and they did a upper GI and found out that he had reflux. But I was pretty sure it was something different. I mean, this kid was like hurling across the room. So finally, at 3 months, they did a Flexic, and that's when they found he had a milk, soy protein, and GI allergy. She was first grade and had all these headaches continuing. And so I just thought, what's going on here? We've got good insurance, so why can't we figure out what's wrong with my child? It got worse and worse, and she was just having pounding headaches, and she started vomiting, and it was just, she didn't even want to go to school, and she loved school. And, I work at a funeral home. And so one night I had this dream about a girl that we had buried 17 years before who had a brain tumor. And the next day at work, there was a gentleman who called, unrelated business, but said, thank you for taking care of my granddaughter years ago. Oh my gosh. I said, well, if that's the girl, I'm heading straight to the hospital. And it was, and we did. And we get there, and I said, we're not leaving until you do whatever test it is that you need to do. And they did the MRI, and that's when they found it. So we had moved from the house that he'd always known. And it was a stressful time because of the situation and me leaving because of the domestic violence. And, so then I'm taking my son to these places that I hadn't before: welfare office, WIC office, child care, because I was I was a stay-at-home, but I was working at home. So now this kid who'd never really been sick, just picking things up all over the place. And it didn't take him long to just come to the conclusion that it was just asthma. I was 28 weeks pregnant, and I started having these pains. And so my husband took me to the hospital, and we were doing some testing, and he came in. The doctor said, well, this is going to be a shock to you, but you're dilated to like 6, and your cervix is gone, and you're in preterm labor. You're starting, this was fast, and this was happening. And I just was like, no, this can't be happening. He said, well, we don't have a neonatal department here, so we're gonna, rush you over to Oakwood. There's an ambulance gonna take you. And they gave me a shot for his lungs, and they gave me magnesium. And that magnesium, I couldn't see, I couldn't walk. My body was just on fire, and it was just too early. And so we got to Oakwood, and then I was just like every other day going into labor, and they gave me another magnesium shot, and I was losing consciousness in and out. And my husband said, listen, my wife's not doing well. She's gonna die. The baby's coming. Let's just have the baby. And so I delivered my son at 29 weeks. So I had already had an ultrasound, and I got a letter from the state saying that I needed another one. And I thought it was maybe a mistake. There are a few mistakes there. So I called, and they said no, they wanted to see the baby from a different angle. So I went in, and the tech was doing her thing, and then she called the doctor in, and he was looking, and I said, are you looking for something? It seemed like they were looking for something. And he said, has anyone talked to you about this? And I said, no. And he said they couldn't find the kidneys, and that there was little to no amniotic fluid. So the lungs were gonna have a hard time developing. So he sent me to a level 2 ultrasound. And that was 4 weeks later, because they couldn't get me in before that. So I was on bed rest this whole time because they didn't know what was happening. And finally got the test, and he came in and he said, I'm sorry, but your baby has renal agenesis. She doesn't have any kidneys, and she's not going to survive birth. It's that the wind knocked out of you kind of feeling. I was there by myself and my son's on the table, and the pediatrician came in, and I don't know why he was there, if they called him or if he was there seeing someone else. And he said, "This is what's going on." And I said in a stern, loud voice, "No, it's not okay. This is not okay." He looked at her and he looked at me and he said, "Well, this is what's wrong. She'll probably never walk or talk," in as plain a conversation as I just said it to you. And as I started to cry, he said, "Well, you know, this is the same child that you came in with," as if I wasn't supposed to be sad or upset about the news that he had just given me. Ugh. So, you know, with Garrett, it was just, I never got to a panicky point. You know, I never said, "Oh, crap, this is what's happening. What am I going to do?" Like, I think because I knew. And I remember thinking, I just need to do what's best to handle this for my child. I need to get it together. Like, here it is. So here it is, and it's time. It's time for you to do your work. I was angry at myself, and I don't know. They didn't let us hold him when he was born. They just put him in the isolate, and my whole family was there. And when it was time for us to hold him, I remember not wanting to. Sorry. I don't know why I didn't want to hold him. I was angry and I was scared. And the weird thing is, my whole family seemed to have this instant connection with him, but I didn't. So the doctor comes in and just says, "You know, your baby's not going to survive." I couldn't understand it. She was so alive. It didn't make sense to my brain. I just wailed, and I collapsed in a chair and cried. I don't know how long I was in there, but I don't remember ever leaving the room. So, you know, you got expectations for your children, whether it's their health or it's, you know, what you want for them. And now she's got this unfixable thing. And, you know, I wasn't crying because, oh, this horrible thing is happening to us. I was crying because I love her and what I want for her. Well, I didn't care about the rest of the world. I mean, yeah, I didn't care about the rest of the world when, you know, he was in chemo. And whatever. But I'd go to his school, though, and see these boys with their strong muscles, and they were running, and he can't. I mean, he could barely stand, and he would drag himself to school. If they had to stand for a while, the teacher would let him rest, or if they had to read for a while, he could lay down and rest. A lot of times, when it was time to put that patch on, she would just sit there. Once in a while, she'd try to watch TV, but if she did, she had to sit really, really close. It was just so, you got this kid, 3 years old, who'd otherwise be running around, jumping, doing things, and she's just sitting there. I can't see, you're so mean. I cried a lot of nights because I felt so guilty. So the grieving process, well, first it was a true battle for her life. That was the first thing. But, Jessica had, superficially speaking, the most gorgeous hair you'd ever seen. And radiation to the brain kills sear cells. So it's different. It's thin, bald patches. So there's some moments of anger and grief about that. And when she wants to go to school and be like everyone else and have a boy notice her, those things. But it's not that cancer happened, but it's what cancer caused. I didn't want her to die. I didn't know, I didn't want to be a mom of a sick baby. I didn't want her to be sick. I didn't want her to look up at me and I can't fix it. And I knew she was 9 days old. We took her in, and I knew that it was going to be me alone, and it was. It is. It still is. I cried so hard that day taking her in. I thought I was going to die. Part of me did. So, one place I never had support, I do now, but I didn't then, was those middle of the night times. Those, he's so sick I can't get to work times. During the true crises, hospital stays and stuff like that, people would come. But those middle of the nights, it was me. It was just me and him. That was it. God, grant me the serenity. Well, Laura, he really knew how to support me during these times. And the first year of our marriage after Charlie was born was just hell. I'm not going to deny that. We went to therapy and they said, it's not you, it's not your marriage, it's this situation. And, you got these two babies. Both have the condition, but one was severe. And we didn't have any family nearby. We did have some friends around, but I tell you, in the moments with my babies, it was just such an emotional time. I just closed the door and I wanted it just to be me and my husband and my babies. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Well, my mother-in-law lived down there, so she helped out a lot. She was really helpful. And my husband and my family would come to visit once in a while. And the older kids, I didn't want to lean on them too much, but it was nice to know that I could leave him at home with them. So, I could, I don't know, go to the library and just get a book so that I could read and kind of, not go insane. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can. My mom, she was there physically, emotionally, mentally. When Lily was in the hospital for the first 2 months of life, she would come like once a week and I could go home and get a good night's sleep. She actually escorted my kidney from the main hospital to Lily in Children's Hospital. And then took care of us in her ex-husband's house for 6 weeks. She really showed me what it was to be a support and to love unconditionally. So we are very blessed to have her. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, I guess I just think it's because I had such strong faith in God and strong faith in my family. I just never doubted that he would be okay. Well, I'm weird, I guess. I go into denial. I don't dwell on it because if I do, I would just freak myself out. So during her first surgery, I actually went to the Windsor Casino. And when I got back, she'd been in surgery for like 12 hours. The second one, I went to the Oakland Mall. Mm-hmm. Well, it's him. Breathing is pretty elemental. It's right up there. So if you're not breathing, you're not doing much of anything else. So whatever it took, whatever I could do, whatever it took. Well, I was very task-oriented. And so I would just look at it, go, okay, no emotion, just doing it. And then I realized it's okay. It's okay to be emotional. This is a journey, and there's a path, and it's going to zig and it zag, and just staying on that path, as long as you're on it. If you're shaking, it's going to be okay. You can still get through. Well, it was Lily. When I was pregnant, she was alive and kicking, and she had the hiccups, and she was just fighting. And they said, okay, this baby's not expected to survive, but how could that be? And then she was born, and she did survive. And she was still fighting, and she is still fighting to this day. And so she has never given up, and so I can't give up on her. So the nurse said, wow, looks like this little fella almost hung himself. And I said, what? So we got my medical records, and it turns out it was noted on my first ultrasound at 10 weeks that the cord was wrapped around his neck. Well, no one told us of this, and I had 5 ultrasounds, and it was around his neck 3 times, and they still let me deliver vaginally. So no one will say you should have had a C-section. Our GI doc kind of blew us off. She was like, okay, so, try this medication. If it doesn't work, stop using it, and then just send us on our way. I was like, what is happening right now? I've got this baby who's not happy. I mean, he's just arched and, knees to his chin, just feeling miserable. I could not believe she was so whatever about it. Well, they have their own language. They would come in and say he just had some Brady's and apneas and D-stats and blah, and I didn't know what the heck. I mean, I do now, but I didn't know then what they were talking about. And they talk so fast, and I tried to ask a question, and I just felt like they looked at me like, that was a really stupid question. Why would you even ask such a dumb question? Well, then finally, 2 months after she was off the respirator, we were like good to go kind of thing. So she still had some feeding issues. Oh, and, they don't tell you the small stuff. Apparently, if she would have just stayed with a pacifier these whole 2 months, she would have never lost her suck reflex. I mean, I guess, they didn't mind telling us that. It didn't occur to them how she was really going to eat afterwards. One time when Moore was really sick, her doctor came in on a weekend in street clothes because he just heard that she was so sick and wanted to see how she was doing. I mean, no matter how much you need to know and how much you need to know what you're talking about, to know that you really care about my child, that you care to remember things, that you notice things about her, that really makes all the difference. So we would start the meeting, and they would say, what's, your name, your child's name, what's wrong with your kid? This one lady, she had a kid who had Down syndrome, and pretty severely. And there were some other things like Asperger's and Graves syndrome, and here's my kid, he could communicate, turn his head, he could talk. And I said, well, hi, this is, David, and he's got muscle weakness on his right side. And they said, well, this lady looked at me, the one whose child had Down syndrome, she looked at me like I just didn't belong there. Like, what's wrong with your kid? I'm sure. Come on, get out of here. Well, you hear stories, and mine was just so different. And I'd ask questions, and because I didn't get it, and they looked at me like I was strange. And then they seemed to be scared to kind of ask me what happened with mine, like what happened. Like, they wanted to know what I did. Like, I didn't do anything. It wasn't me. Like, they would say, I'm sorry, like I did something. Like, they wanted to know what I did wrong, and I didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't me. So Lily had these horrible gagging fits, and she would turn red and purple and blue, and her body would tighten, and I would try to undo her feeding tube to like air it out so stuff would come out, and nobody knew what to do about it. I didn't know how to help her. And you know what happened? Wherever, at the library, at the park, at the grocery store. And I was embarrassed because people were staring, and I felt guilty because I couldn't help her. And like people were staring like, lady, what's wrong with you? And you know, we got a lot of stares. But only one time did anyone ever stop to ask if they could help us. You know, sometimes you just don't really know what to even hope for. Well, it's the little things that make you appreciate the little things even more, I think. I don't know. I mean, I guess every smile and every noise that Cole makes, it's a blessing. You know, we just never gave up on him. You can't give up on your child. You just can't. You got to be their advocate. So I was staying at the Ronald McDonald House, and I was getting ready in the morning to go over for her surgery. And this song kept going through my head, This Is the Day the Lord Has Brought song. And you know, you'd think you'd be biting your nails waiting for your daughter to have brain surgery. I don't know, but this song just kept going in my head. So then when I got there, I went in and took her back, and I came out, and my mom was there, and she said, you know, I was driving here, and I was just thinking, why, Lord, why? And then I thought, well, maybe we should be rejoicing. Maybe, you know, this is the day the Lord has brought us. Then a year later, we got a postcard in the mail for her birthday. And that same Bible quote was on that card. So I just think, you know, whatever happens, she's going to be taken care of. When he was hospitalized, they were trying to put an IV in. So they would take his arm and he'd pull it back, take his arm, pull it back. So, you know, he was little. He probably wasn't even 2. They're trying to explain, you know, why they need to put this IV in this arm. And so they take it again. And finally, boop, he just popped that thumb right in his mouth. And so they put the IV in the other arm. But he was so sick. He didn't even cry. He just turned his head. But boy, he fought for that thumb. Well, we had this huge weight just lifted off our shoulders. I mean, you know, I was telling them all about the stuff, all the problems we've been having. And then my husband told them all the problems we're having. And then he just, you know, looked at us and said, this is what's wrong. This is what we can do. And he's going to get better. It was like, whoa, this positive moment in our life. I mean, we finally had something that we could fight. So I was preparing for her death while I was pregnant, but she was still very much alive. So I kind of decided to introduce her to everything that I could think of on the short time that she would have here. So, you know, I'm eating I'm like, this is a taco I'm eating. And like a train would go by, that's the sound of a train, and kind of explain what a train was, if I could. And then when we had the transplant, the doctor came in and he said, oh my gosh, your kidney kicks ass. Like we put it in and it started pumping right away, you know, congratulations. And, You know, it's those moments that really make it worthwhile. I never got a baby shower or advice. Oh, this is a cute little lamb. Oh, yes. What to expect when you're expecting. Oh, a visit to the hospital. Interesting. Don't be afraid. Oh, what's this? Ambulatory enteral nutrition bag. What that is. Find stories to give you hope. Okay. Oh, a mask and a blood pressure cuff? I don't know. Okay. Let's see. Do research. Not sure what to do. What is this? A Mickey Bolus extension set. I'm not sure really what these things are. Another food bag. Where's the stuff for babies? This stuff isn't for babies. This is syringes. What is this? Why? This isn't right. Ilex protectant. What is that? What are these? If we're going to enable our children to live, we need to let them live. Okay, hey Lils, it's time to get to school. Yeah. I don't know. Where is your other shoe? It looks like it's over here. Yes, can you please put it on? We're running late. Okay. Yes, you have it. Good job. Yep, yeah, on your backpack. Perfect. Okay, let's go. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. For picking up, and then I have a gift for you that is more inspiring than taking pictures. I'm there with you.
Right.
So I just want to thank you for listening to these parents, absorbing their stories and sharing their experiences with us, both inside and outside of our hospital and clinic walls, so that we can better, as Chase says, meet people where they are, but not leave them there. So thank you very much. And you are a disruptor.
Yay!
So you are
I
doing
love
our
Big
Big Sock
Socks.
Club.
Yay! Thank you.